He makes the papers as often as the biggest names in the game, and he's been retired for more than 30 years. He is the somewhat reluctant star of the long-running footy show with a unique capacity to say and do things on and off screen that land him in hot water. He is the man who has been described by various footy show hosts for 20 years as the 300-game superstar from Geelong, John Sammy Newman. Welcome, John. It's an interesting ensemble, mate.
Oh, thanks for welcoming me, Mick. And what do you mean it's an interesting ensemble?
Well, the shorts, the shoes.
Oh, coming from the house model for the Brotherhood of St Lawrence. What's wrong with what I'm wearing?
I knew you'd say that. I knew when I asked that question,
So you
that's
got
exactly
notes.
the response I'd get.
So you've got notes, but you know exactly what you're going to ask me. Why have you got those?
Well, because I'm a bit nervous about
You're
being sitting
nervous. The
across
only
from
time
you.
I've ever seen you nervous is over a 2-foot putt when you were trying to save $12.50 on the last hole down at Kingswood.
Yeah, that's Kingswood. It's a while since we've been there. How are you travelling in your
Does it matter how long
67th year,
hey?
old-timer? How are you travelling in your 67th year?
Slowly, very slowly, Mick.
You look well. No, you do. Apart from the shoes, you look well.
Well, what's wrong with now, Mick? Let's get this out of the way. What's wrong with the shoes?
They're different. They're different.
Well, I like to compartmentalise my toes in case when I get home some of them are missing. Things are dropping off me just at a large rate.
Including your weight. I mean, you look slim, sleek. What, have you lost weight?
Yeah, look, I'm sorry for trying to keep fit in my elder and latter years because I'm trying to join the rest of society who are slowly becoming obese. So I'm going to go out and try and put lots on after this.
What do you do, though, to enjoy your free time?
Well, my free time, I enjoy boating and I play a little golf, got back into playing golf.
Yep, you have.
And just chat with the one or two friends that I have on a regular basis.
Your golf, I mean, it troubled you for a long time.
It
I
did.
always thought that golf caused you more angst than your football.
Caused me more it did.
Now
did.
you're playing off, what, 14 or 15?
Yes, one of those.
And content with that?
Very content, Mick. Yes, I am very content. Golf really got to me because I thought I was better than I was, or I thought I should be better than I was, but I wasn't.
Your demeanour on the golf course has raised a few eyebrows over the years.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Has. Not something I'm proud of. I used to throw clubs and cuss. Now I cuss a little, try and do it not within earshot of the general membership of the golf club because that's not a welcome thing. Haven't thrown a club for 10 years because you get home and you think, how stupid is that?
Are friends important to you? Do you have a lot of friends and do you cultivate them?
No, I don't have a lot of friends and I certainly don't cultivate friends. I cultivate the friends that I have. I think it's worth putting the time in with friends that you have, but I don't think it's worth putting the time into people who are just acquaintances.
Yeah, I get the impression from the 25 years that I've known you that you're not a big rap for most of the inhabitants of planet Earth. Is that fair?
I'm not interested in what they're doing. I'm not interested in them, no, but nor are they with me. I have no interest in what other people are doing, as long as they leave me alone, but they usually don't. No, I don't cultivate friends. I'm a bit antisocial, but that's the way we are, Mick.
Shane Warne was one of your
Shane
friends, is one of your friends. What's the status of that relationship? You were very tight with Warnie. Is that still the case?
Well, I would hope so. Shane has moved on to the international field. He has moved on to the international stage, and I don't think has a hell of a lot of time for local people because he's not here.
I'm getting the feeling you feel that you might have been snubbed a bit.
No,
recently.
not snubbed at all, not at all.
The former Premier, Mr Kennett, now I know he's a golf partner of yours, and you've always spoken positively about Geoffrey Kennett.
Yes, I have. Do you think that sounds like him?
A little.
Well, thanks for coming. Oh, what do you mean little? I think it really, from inside here, it sounds like him.
I know you like it, yeah.
Hello, Sam, what have you been doing? Do you want to go to golf?
He's an interesting character, isn't he?
He is an obscure, diverse and lateral man and did great things for this, now we're not getting political, but he did great things for this state. And not sure how great he was at Hawthorn, and I say that without being smart or taking any stick to him. But he's a very nice man, good company.
We see him publicly.
Yes.
The public persona, everyone knows that. But he's a different in private, is he not?
He is. A jovial man, doesn't take himself too seriously.
What do you think of all the do-gooders who ridicule you for your brash, even crass comments? That's the perception that they have.
Like what?
Well, I suppose fundamentally, street talk.
If you saw, it sounds like I'm defending myself too much. I really get sick and tired, not of that question, but I get sick and tired of the vocal minority, those people out there who have no idea what's going on, live in their own little world. I, along with a camera crew, and we've been doing this for 19 years, we go out and speak to everyday people on the street. Some of them are simple, not as in simply stupid, they are simple folk just wandering along the street. If they don't want to speak to us, don't speak to us. We never harass people or ask people to speak to us, but you'd be amazed at how many what you would call simple folk come and speak to us and can't get enough of it. Is that a crime? Is that belittling people? I never take them to task about their mentality or their intellect. I have a chat to them. That speaks for itself. And if we put on Street Talk on the Footy Show, some of the stuff that people do and say to us, I tell you what, we could sell it around the world.
I just want to ask you about the criticism of you and the Footy Show. Now, you always say, you preface all your remarks by saying, I don't mind people having a go at me or the Footy Show, but they've got to know I'm going to have a go back. But I am one of many who think that you overcorrect and you don't level the score, you just obliterate the target.
We've been monitored and edited or scrutinised to within an inch of my life because of some of the things I have said. Would I take anything I've said back? No, I wouldn't, because you don't get a chance to take it back. It's easy to say, oh, I would have taken this back. We do it off the top of our head. We think that's what the appeal of the show is, that it's spontaneous. And there's plenty of things that I've said that have probably been borderline. Mind you, I don't think most of the things I say are borderline at that time slot, and when you see what goes on other programs and other shows, we are pretty tame, to be honest. But people love to take a rise out of me, and that's fair enough. What I have said, Mick, is criticise me if you like. I don't mind what you say about me as long as you don't mind what I say about you. And you'd be amazed how that is not a two-way street, that. And you know what critics are, Mick? Critics are like eunuchs in a harem. They're there every night, they see it done every night, they see how it should be done, but they can't do it themselves. They're what critics are.
Okay.
Get up and have a crack at it yourself. Well, no,
sit back and relax.
But you have the vocal vole, a group of vole, or rats, a minority come up and try and find every single thing you do something wrong with it.
Two more skits. Shane Crawford pulled your pants down. Did you know that was coming?
Not at all.
You didn't? Well, did it embarrass you?
Of course it did, Mick, for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
I'd like some warning if I'm going to have my pants pulled down on live television.
Did David Schwartz have any notice that he was going to get a pie on the face? To an extent. I said I might give you, he was a panel member of our show.
He was.
I
said, David, I might have a present for you.
For a great 150th, mate, just...
The boy sprang up, and only due to my magnificent physical condition did I not spend that summer in a wheelchair.
Well, people forget that you were a very good footballer, I think. Your citation in the Australian Football Hall of Fame is, to my view, modest. It says, quote, one of Geelong's finest ruckmen, a courageous player who overcame serious injuries and later became a media star. Does that do you justice?
Mick, if you think I'm going to try and convince people that I was any other player than what they thought I was, you're wrong. I don't care if people think of me.
I don't agree with that. I think you do care.
I know what I was as a footballer.
Yeah.
I know what I was. And if the perception is that, well, good on them.
Well, describe John Newman, the footballer. I mean, it is a long time since you played. It's 30-odd years since you played.
Yeah.
Is there someone of the modern era that you believe plays the game the way you did?
I'm not about to tell you how I played football or how good I was or I wasn't. I'm not about to tell you who I would be like. That is, in the eye of the beholder, that is so subjective. Me telling you about what sort of footballer I was. I played for 18 years with Geelong. I missed 5 years in football terms through injury. That is, I missed 100 games through injury. Kevin Bartlett and I played for 18 years, him for Richmond, me for Geelong, and he played 100 games more than me. He played 403 games, I played 303.
You're in the Hall of Fame and you're in Geelong's Team of the Century, and having seen you play, you deserve both those accolades.
Well, that's mighty neighbourly of you, Mick. So if you could wander around and every time someone says, you know that clown that you know me, I want you to say, by the way, he was a very, very good footballer, and just see if they laugh.
You played the bulk of your career with one kidney, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. How difficult was that in the psychological sense, coming back you were young when you were injured?
Yes.
Was it a psychological barrier for you?
It was, yeah, it was. I did it in the first semi-final in '67 against Collingwood, and then when Polly was there, Polly Farmer, and he left that year, went back to Perth, and I took over the mantle as number one ruckman for Geelong in '68, so I had the whole summer to get ready. But it was daunting, and Tom Lonergan, I know, when he suffered the injury a couple of years ago, he found it difficult as well, but you couldn't keep him away from playing football now if you had 100 horses. He loves it.
Well, we know in graphic detail of the Lonergan situation, but my memory is that you could have died at the MCG that day that you were hurt. Is that an exaggeration or not?
A lot of people wish that I had. No, it's not exaggeration, only in as much as, now look, let's not make this too hokey or too dramatic, but...
Let's make it factual.
All right, well, I was taken off the ground, having been collected in the knee by someone from Collingwood, and things weren't quite as advanced in those days. I was left in the rooms, this is in the first quarter, I was left in the rooms lying on a stretcher or a rub-down table until half-time. That's what they were going to come in and examine me at half-time. And my father, God love him, he walked in about 10 minutes before half-time, and I think I was the colour of that sheet of paper there, and I said, could you help me to the urinal? I want to urinate. And he held me up there, and I'm sorry about this, but it was pure blood that I urinated. And he went into a bit of a state, and they put me in the ambulance, and my mother and father got in the back of the ambulance with me, and I can remember this to this day. And they were taking my boots and clothes off. I was still in my football gear. And they rushed me in, I think it was to the Alfred, and they had me on a trolley, and they swung those doors through into the operating theatre with my mother behind me. And the doctor said, now look, you can't come in here, we're going to operate on him. And she said, is he all right? He said, it'll be touch and go. I remember her saying that. I remember him saying that to her, it'll be touch and go. Because I had my blood supply replaced twice. I was just internally bleeding. So, Mick, look, I'm here to say that it was a success. My life hasn't been a success, but physically they managed to save me, and here I am. And probably would have been better if they'd just let me go. Would have saved a hell of a lot of trouble from everyone's point of view.
We might have ever seen the footy show if that had ever happened, though.
Wouldn't that have been delightful? Wouldn't that have been a bonus?
Sam, your parents, your father was a master at Geelong Grammar, correct?
He was.
Yep. How were they about your public persona, your TV persona? Did they live long enough to see you be the person you are on Thursday nights?
It's a very good question. I suppose your parents love you, whoever you are, whoever you turn. I know my father and mother got a kick out of me playing for Geelong. They love their football, as my two sisters do to this day. But I think, much to the chagrin of my mother and father, and probably my sisters, they wondered what in the hell they had produced. And my father, who was an elderly man when I started doing the footy show, used to ring me up and say, "What are you doing?" I'd say, I said, "Pops," I used to call him Pop. I said, "I'm not sure." He said, "Settle down, son." He said, "No." So I know, I don't know if they thought it was good what I did. I'm sure they didn't think it was good what I did, but they thought, well, that's our son, so that's it. We can't choose who your parents are, so...
Time for a break, Sammy. When we come back, I've got plenty more for you, including who was the better of the Ablets and your thoughts on the modern game. You've always declared Polly Farmer as the greatest player that you've seen.
Yes.
Certainly the greatest Geelong player and probably the greatest player that you've seen.
Yes.
Now, that's a statement of fact. Let me ask you a harder one. Who of the two Ablets has been a better player? Gary Senior, Gary Junior?
And I hate to use this word again, but this is such a subjective...
Well, of course it is.
Well, but it is, Mick, because some people like the flair and the excitement and the unpredictability of Gary Ablett Senior, and some people like the honest, real, workman-like class of his son. So, do you want Gary Ablett, in order for Gary Ablett to take those great marks and do what he did, he has to have someone like his son who gets the ball 50 times a day and kicks it down to him. So I don't think you could separate them. Gary Ablett Senior was more exciting and is probably what this game's about. Gary Ablett Junior, in modern terms, is what this game's about.
The 2007 Geelong Premiership ended a huge drought.
Yes.
I always had the feeling that you weren't as happy with that premiership as I expected someone would, given your history. You're not a Bomber Thompson fan, are you?
Oh, well, now. Mark Thompson is, I think, a very nice man. I get on very well with him.
You do get on well with him, do you?
Every time I'm in his company, whether he makes a special effort or not, I don't make a special effort. I don't mind if people don't like me, but if we chat, I think I get on well with Bomber Thompson. I think he's a very nice man, so that's that. But in a role that I had on the radio, I thought Geelong were playing a pedantic, contrived game of football, which incidentally is the way the game went for a number of years, some years ago. It is starting, in my opinion, to become a better game. But for a period of time there, it became a ridiculous exercise in people trying to show how smart they were, trying to reinvent a wheel that didn't need to be reinvented, bamboozling people and showing that they knew more about the game than the actual people who played it, and confused them into the bargain. And I thought Geelong did that in spades. Bomber Thompson, don't forget, is the second longest coach in Geelong's history. 11 years he was there. Probably lucky to last 11 years, not because he wasn't necessarily any good, because if you don't get success in the first handful of years, you usually get turned over. But Frank Costa and Brian Cook stuck by him.
You've softened, you know. I hear what you're saying.
I ain't finished yet.
Righto, okay.
And then he made some monumental errors, in my opinion, in successive finals that saw them not play in a grand final when they should have. And in the end, he was, in my opinion, he was just almost counterproductive to Geelong. He was paying lip service to coaching, and he had a bigger staff around him who had more influence. Now, when I see him next time out in the street, he'll say, "Thanks for that, you prick." And I'll say, "Mark, I still think you're a nice man, but that was my opinion of you as a coach."
You give the impression occasionally that you're tormented by the modern game. Is that true?
I'm glad I'll get that impression, because that is an absolute absolute certainty. The modern game went into a state of flux a period some years ago. It's starting in fact, I think the way Geelong played in last year's grand final just was a refreshing insight into the way this game can be played successfully if you get the ball quickly down to the people who win the game for you. That is the forwards, the power forwards. And you'd be amazed at how many people that come through the portals of the footy show the Jonathan Browns, the Nick Rewalts, the Barry Halls. There's just singular boys, those, incidentally.
Thank you, Gary Ayres.
The Cameron Moonies. And the first question I always like to ask, I said, does it confuse you when they don't kick the ball to you? They say the one thing we want them to do when they get it near the centre of the ground is kick it to us first up, because we are good players. They don't say that, but they are good players and more often than not can beat their opponent one out. And that's why the game got into a state of confusion.
But let me ask you one thing about that. I agree with that. And I've expressed the same view several times. But if there were a simple way to play this game and win it, why wouldn't 18 coaches be doing it?
Well, maybe they don't have the personnel to do it. But you've got to play to your strengths, not to your weaknesses, surely. Yeah. Why would you fiddle-faddle around dippy-dappy football up the ground when you've got...
Dippy-dappy?
Dippy-dappy. Why would you play football like that when you've got 2 or 3 people standing up the forward end of the ground waiting to have an opportunity to win a game for you and you don't kick it to them?
You played with Jack Hawkins, and he was a very good player in your era.
Very good player.
Are you a believer or non-believer in his son Tommy?
Well, it's easy to say we're a believer in Tom now because, incidentally, I'm a believer in Tom Hawkins now because I think confidence is everything in this game, particularly when you're a youth. And he was in the wilderness for a couple of years there, but that game on Grand Final Day, the biggest game of the year, last year, the Grand Final, he suddenly came of age. But I would suggest he came of age because Chris Scott changed the way those boys played football, and they did kick it down to him more often than not, and they backed him to get the ball. But I think the greatest thing I've ever seen in football that changed a game, and it's very underrated and underestimated, is what Stephen Johnson did when he thought, I will rescue this man, Tom Hawkins, who must be getting the yips. And he's getting the ball, but he can't do anything with it. And when he asked him to hand pass the ball to him and kick a goal and take the pressure off him, that is the best piece of team football I've ever seen, because it won the game for Geelong, won him a grand final, took the pressure off Tom Hawkins. And that man, Stephen Johnson, who is probably a very nice man, I know him very well, I don't know how much intelligence he's got, and I don't use that smartly, but to work that out and to do that and put himself on the line. If he'd missed it, he would have been laughed off the ground, particularly when he was almost not fit to play, is the best piece of football I've ever seen, and people should replay that, and that's what won Geelong the game, and that's what turned them around.
I'm one of the few people who call you your given name these days. Who is the Sam from whom you inherited your nickname?
Bob Davis, my first coach, gave me the name Sam Newman from the Jackie Gleason Show, from Sammy Spear and his orchestra.
Bobby Davis.
A little bit of travelling music, Sam, and away we go.
So what was the link between the boy from the grammar and Sammy from...
We used to watch the show, the Jackie Gleason Show, and I came into training one day and I said, a little bit of travelling music, Sam. And Bob Davis said, and away we go out to training, Sam. And that's it. That's how it stuck.
We've run out of time, Sammy.
Oh, how disappointing.
As always, it's been interesting and entertaining. I love the chat.
Go and ask one final question that you don't have to read off there. Go on. Anything else you'd like to know about me? Anything
what are you
at
wearing
all?
Those shoes for?
What?
What are they called?
They're called skins.
Are they?
That is the question that you thought, this will be a blockbuster, I'll wind this up with that.
Do you have regrets? Is there one I know you're believing that you can't, and we can't change what's happened, but is there something where you would say, deep down, I would like my time over again?
I'd like to have played in a grand final for Geelong. That's what I'd like to have done. You can't do anything about the past. There's not much you can do about the future. The present is what we live in, but I would love to have played in a grand final. I was denied the opportunity in '67, and that is why run regret. But it's no good worrying about things you don't have any control over, Mick.
No, it is not.
And it's no good crying over things that can't cry over you.
Very philosophical, John. I've enjoyed the chat as always. Loved catching up, and look forward to seeing you on the 9 network on Thursday nights.
Well, put it there. And I'm glad you looked at me in the eye. A lot of people don't.
This has been a Fox Footy production.